Some nights you can just feel trouble coming. I was off duty, dressed in jeans and a leather jacket. Nothing that screamed law enforcement. Just a guy running an errand. The parking lot outside the office complex was dimly lit, mostly empty except for a few scattered cars. I locked mine up, pocketed my keys, and started toward the entrance. Then I saw them. 2 men standing near the doorway, wearing security uniforms, or at least something that was trying to pass as one. The first guy was tall, thick around the middle, his navy blue shirt a size too small, stretching at the seams. His belt was overloaded with cheap-looking gear, plastic handcuffs, a flashlight that looked like it came from a gas station. The second guy was shorter, wiry, with a face that belonged in a mugshot. His uniform was creased in all the wrong places, like he'd pulled it from a pile on the floor. And there was no name tag. Red flag number 1. I slowed my pace, watching them from the corner of my eye. They hadn't seen me yet, or at least they were pretending not to, but I could already tell these weren't real security guards. Then, just as I reached the entrance, they moved. Hold it right there. The tall one stepped forward, blocking my path. The wiry one flanked my side, arms crossed. Too aggressive, too practiced. Red flag number 2. I stopped, gave them a neutral look. Problem? Tall guy squinted at me. You can't just walk in here. I glanced at the glass doors behind them. No security booth, no posted rules, nothing indicating restricted access. Didn't know this place had a checkpoint. He huffed. New policy, need to see some ID. I raised an eyebrow. You first. Wiry guy frowned. What? You're asking for mine, I said, tilting my head. So, let's start with yours. Name, badge number, company you work for. Silence. Wiry guy's eyes twitched. Just a flicker, but I caught it. His brain was scrambling for an answer. Red flag number 3. Tall guy scoffed. We're security. That's all you need to know. I nodded slowly, pretending to buy it. Got it. And what company hired you? Another pause. They weren't ready for this. Now, a real security guard would have called dispatch by now, would have had radio chatter, a badge, an actual company name to back them up. These two? Nothing. They were making it up as they went. I let out a slow breath. All right. I didn't know what game they were playing, but one thing was clear. They had no idea who they were messing with. So I did what any off-duty cop would do. I played along. For now. There's a moment in every bad con job when the scammer realizes they're in over their head. I was watching for that moment now. Tall guy squared his shoulders, trying to look official, but his uniform still fit like it belonged to someone 20 pounds lighter. Wiry guy kept shifting his weight, hands twitchy, like he couldn't decide whether to act tough or run. ID, tall guy repeated, extending his hand like this was some official checkpoint. I sighed, giving them my best mildly confused civilian look. Funny, I was about to ask for yours. Wary guy frowned. Huh? I motioned between them. You're security, right? I just like to know who I'm dealing with. Company name, badge numbers, that sort of thing. Neither of them spoke. Tall guy let out a slow exhale. Just show me your ID, man. No problem, I said, reaching for my wallet. I pulled it out, slowly, deliberately, and held it just out of their reach. All right, I said, keeping my tone light. Before I hand this over, quick question. Who exactly are you securing? Tall guy blinked. What? This building? I said, nodding toward the entrance. Is it private property? Corporate? Government? Silence. I could hear Weary Guy's brain stalling out. It's confidential, he muttered. I whistled low. Confidential, huh? That's a fancy way of saying you don't know. Tall guy clenched his jaw. Look, man, you can't just... I held up a hand. Nah, let's go step by step. I'll make this easy for you. I turned slightly, just enough to glance at the security cameras mounted near the entrance. Those cameras, I said, pointing. What system are they running? You guys monitoring in-house or is it outsourced? Wiry guy blinked hard like I'd just spoken another language. Tall guy shifted uncomfortably. Beautiful, I continued. And when's the last time you checked? Those feeds, because if you're doing real security work, you'd be able to tell me how many people came through here in the last 10 minutes. Silence. I leaned in slightly, voice dropping just enough to turn the tension up. I bet you two haven't even stepped inside that building, have you? Wiry guy's jaw clenched. There it is. That hesitation. Tall guy had enough. All right. Smart ass. He moved forward, reaching like he was going to grab my arm. I didn't step back, didn't flinch. I just looked at him. That half-second pause, that's when the power shifted, because for the first time, he was waiting for my reaction, and now, I was in control. Tall guy stepped in front of me, his broad frame now fully blocking the exit. Wiry guy moved to my side, a little too close, his hand hovering near his belt, like he was debating whether to grab something. A weapon? A radio? Or just a bluff? Either way, I wasn't about to give him the chance. Look, tall guy said, lowering his voice, trying to sound more reasonable. We don't have to make this complicated. Wiry guy nodded. Yeah, you cooperate, we can handle this privately. Ah. There it is, the grift, the real reason they were out here playing dress-up. They weren't just faking security. They were running a scam, maybe robbing people. Maybe worse. I gave them my best mildly concerned civilian look. Privately, huh? What exactly are we handling? Tall guy sighed like he was dealing with an idiot. You were on private property without clearance. Right, I said, nodding. And? Well, he continued, that's a fineable offense. I raised an eyebrow. Is it? Yep, wiry guy chimed in. But see, we're not looking to make trouble for you. We're reasonable guys. Tall guy crossed his arms. So maybe instead of a fine, we work something out here. They were getting impatient. Pushing too hard now. Sloppy. I let out a slow breath and glanced at my watch. I see. So, let me get this straight. I pointed toward the security cameras above us. You guys work security for this building. Tall guy nodded. That's right. And your employer, whoever that is, would rather you… what? Shake people down for cash instead of doing actual security work? Wiry guy frowned. That's not what this is. Sure, I said, folding my arms. And I bet if I… Go inside, ask the building manager. He'll totally confirm that, huh? A beat of silence. They were starting to realize they had picked the wrong guy. Tall guy took a step closer. Bad move. Look, he said, voice lower now, rougher. You don't want to make this a problem. I tilted my head. And if I do? His jaw clenched. That's when I knew. These guys weren't used to pushback. They were used to easy targets. The type who gets scared, hand over a few $100 and leave without asking questions. Unfortunately for them, I had a lot of questions. I took a slow step back, scanning my surroundings. Empty lot. No witnesses. All right. Time to play this carefully. I just had to wait, because the second they made the wrong move, this little act of theirs was going to fall apart fast. Tall guy squared his shoulders, stepping in even closer. His breath, heavy with something cheap and bitter, coffee, or maybe regret. You're not listening, he said, voice low. We're done talking. Wiry guy nodded, shifting behind me, cutting off my angle to move freely. I sighed. And here we go. They wanted to escalate, but they still weren't sure how much trouble I was worth. I could see it in their hesitation, in the way tall guy's fists weren't quite clenched, in the way wary guy kept glancing toward the road. They weren't trying to arrest me. They were trying to stall me, which meant I still had time to make this fun. I raised my hands slightly, casual, like a guy trying to defuse tension. All right, so what's the plan here, fellas? Tall guy smirked. You come with us, answer a few questions inside. Wiry guy nodded. Yeah, just a routine check. The classic, let's take this somewhere private trick. I smiled. Sure. Lead the way. I took a step forward, then deliberately tripped over my own foot, stumbling hard into tall guy's shoulder. He grunted, stepping back instinctively. I used that half-second to pivot, twist slightly, just enough to position him between me and wiry guy. Now they were blocking each other. Oh, sorry about that. I straightened, brushing off my jacket. Didn't see your big, imposing frame there. Tall guy scowled, but he didn't move. Wiry guy was now off balance, his path to me cut off by his own partner. That tiny shift in positioning changed the entire dynamic. Now they were the ones boxed in, and right on cue. Another voice cut through the tension. Hey, What's going on here? We all turned. A third man had entered the scene, stepping out from behind a parked car, security uniform, a real one. His posture was relaxed, but his eyes weren't. He wasn't buying what he was seeing, and just like that, the temperature dropped. Tall guy immediately took a step back, smoothing out his shirt like nothing was wrong. Wiry guy's fingers twitched near his belt, then quickly moved away, like a kid caught reaching for a cookie jar. They were nervous now, which meant it was time to have a little fun. I turned to the real security guy, shaking my head. Oh, nothing much. These two were just explaining the building's new policy to me. The real guard frowned. New policy? I crossed my arms, looking directly at Tall guy. Yeah. You were about to explain, weren't you? Silence. Tall guy's jaw locked. Wiry guy's foot shifted, like he was considering running. I smiled. Go on, boys, I said, keeping my voice calm. I'd love to hear the official explanation. They had no idea, but they were about to dig their own graves. There's something beautiful about watching a bad liar run out of lies. Tall guy and wiry guy were standing stiff now, their scam unraveling in real time. The real security guard had his arms crossed, waiting for an answer. I wasn't rushing them either. Let them sweat. Well, I asked, tilting my head. Tell him about this new policy you were explaining to me. Wiry guy forced a laugh, but it came out too sharp. Too fake. It's a private matter, nothing to worry about. Tall guy nodded quickly. Yeah, just a misunderstanding. I smirked. A misunderstanding. You blocked my exit, tried to detain me, and asked for cash to settle things privately. That about sum it up? Tall guy swallowed hard. Wiry guy glanced toward the parking lot again. Looking for an escape, I let out a slow breath, like I was really considering their excuses. Then I dropped the bombshell. I'm the chief of police. Silence. It hit them like a truck. Wiry guy visibly paled. Tall guy's jaw went slack. The real security guard raised an eyebrow. I folded my arms. So you want to go over that new policy again? Because I'd love to hear how it works. Wiry guy's mouth opened and closed, like a fish gulping for air. Tall guy stumbled backward. Look, man, we didn't mean... I raised a hand, cutting him off. Let me guess. It's all a big mistake, right? I took a step forward. They took a step back. That's what you tell the other people you've shaken down, huh? The ones who don't push back? Tall guy's confidence collapsed. Completely. Wiry guy's eyes darted around. He was going to run. I almost smiled. Perfect. Go ahead, I said casually. Make a move. He did. Badly. Wiry guy spun on his heel, bolting toward the parking lot. He didn't make it 5 steps before I moved. A quick step forward, a well-timed grab, and he was face first on the pavement. He let out a wheezy oof. Limbs sprawled out. Tall guy didn't even try to help. He just stood there, frozen, watching. His buddy eat asphalt. I crouched next to Wiry guy, pressing a knee against his back just enough to keep him down. You really thought that was gonna work? He groaned. I didn't know. That I was a cop? I smirked. Yeah, that's kind of the point. The real security guard stepped forward, shaking his head. Well, this just got interesting. I patted Wiry guy's shoulder. Oh, buddy, you have no idea. There's a moment in every bad guy's life when they realize they've officially lost. For Tall guy, that moment was right now. Wiry guy was already on the ground, wheezing under my knee, his face pressed against the pavement like a man rethinking every decision he'd ever made. But Tall guy? He still thought he had options. Big mistake. Look, man, he stammered, raising his hands. We didn't mean any harm, all right? Let's just... Then he pivoted and ran. I sighed. Really? Running? That was the plan? Tall guy was big, sure, but fast? Not even close. He took off toward the parking lot, his boots slamming against the pavement, but I could already see the problem. He was panicking, running on adrenaline, not strategy. And panic makes people sloppy. I stood up from Wiry guy, adjusting my jacket like I had all the time in the world. Then, just as Tall guy hit full stride, I called out, casually, Hey, buddy. He hesitated. A half-second too long. By the time he realized his mistake, I was already moving. 2 quick strides. a sharp pivot. And then I grabbed the back of his shirt collar and yanked. He stumbled hard, his own momentum working against him. His feet tried to catch up, but nope. Down he went. Hard. He crashed against the pavement with a thud, arms flailing, air leaving his lungs in a painful grunt. I exhaled, shaking my head. Yeah. Didn't think that one through, did ya? Meanwhile, wary guy, apparently deciding he didn't want to spend the night in cuffs, lashed out. A desperate swing, wild and untrained. I caught his wrist mid-air, twisted it just enough to make him reconsider his life choices. He yelped, "Okay, I'm done." I let go, and he collapsed back down, defeated, and right on cue. The real security officer finally stepped in. What the hell is going on here? Perfect timing. I dusted off my hands, motioning to the two groaning idiots on the ground. These guys? Fake security. Running a scam. Maybe worse. The security guard blinked. Seriously? Tall guy groaned from the pavement. This is entrapment, man. I smirked. That's cute. You don't even know what entrapment means. Wiry guy, still wincing, muttered under his breath. We're so screwed. Yep. I reached into my pocket, pulling out my phone. And now I'm gonna call this in. Make it official. Tall guy let out a miserable sigh, staring up at the night sky like a man whose fate had just been sealed. And honestly, it had. The flashing red and blue lights painted the parking lot in rhythmic bursts of color, the distant wail of sirens fading as the last patrol car pulled up. Tall guy and wiry guy were sitting on the curb now, cuffed and quiet, looking like two kids, caught sneaking out past curfew, except their little stunt was about to land them in a whole lot more trouble than just grounding. A uniformed officer, Sergeant Ramos, leaned against his squad car, flipping through a tablet. He let out a low whistle. Whew! These guys have been busy. I raised an eyebrow. How bad? He glanced up at me. Bad. He turned the screen so I could see. Multiple reports over the last few months, posing as security, stopping people, demanding cash for fake fines. But that's just the surface. He scrolled. Credit card fraud, stolen property, even some violent incidents. I exhaled through my nose. And no one caught them until now? Ramos shrugged. Most people don't push back. These guys were smart about their targets. Single travelers, out-of-towners, people too scared or too busy to question them. I glanced at Tall Guy, who was now staring at his feet, the weight of reality finally sinking in. Wiry Guy, on the other hand, was still in denial. Look, man, we were just— Shut up, Tall Guy muttered, his voice flat, resigned. For the first time all night, I actually felt a sliver of pity. Not much, but a sliver. Because the truth was, guys like this, they thrive on trust. The uniform, the fake authority, it works because people assume it's real. And that's the problem, isn't it? People don't question. They see a badge, a uniform, a clipboard, and they assume they're dealing with someone who knows what they're doing. Tonight, these two had finally met someone who didn't. I sighed, shaking my head. It's funny. Ramos raised a brow. What is? I looked at the two scammers. If they'd just gotten real jobs as security guards, they probably wouldn't even be making much less than whatever this scam was pulling in. Tall Guy scoffed but didn't argue. Weary Guy muttered, Yeah, well, real security jobs don't pay bail money. I smirked. Nope. But they do come with health benefits. Ramos chuckled, then turned serious. You pressing charges? I nodded. Yeah. And make sure every other victim who filed a complaint gets notified. Tall Guy let out a deep sigh, like a man finally realizing he'd reached the end of the road. Weary Guy just looked miserable. Ramos waved for his officers to load them up. All right, let's wrap this up. As the patrol cars pulled away, I glanced at the empty parking lot, thinking about all the people who'd been fooled before tonight. Lesson of the day? Always question, always verify. The night air was crisp, carrying the low murmur of police radios and the occasional rustle of leaves. The flashing squad car lights flickered across the parking lot, painting everything in rhythmic bursts of red and blue. Tall Guy and Wiry Guy were being escorted to the back of separate patrol cars, their hands cuffed behind their backs. They weren't struggling anymore. The fight had drained out of them, But then, just as one of the officers reached for the door handle, Weary Guy's head snapped up. His brows furrowed like he was trying to put a puzzle together. Then, suddenly, recognition. He blinked hard. Wait. His voice was thin, uncertain. Wait. What did he say your name was? Sergeant Ramos glanced at me, then shrugged. Didn't I mention? You two geniuses tried to shake down Chief Carter. Silence. The moment. Stretched, thick and heavy. Wiry Guy's face went pale. His head whipped around so fast I thought he might give himself whiplash. You're that chief of police? His voice cracked. I just smirked. Tall Guy finally looked up, eyes wide, realization crashing down like a tidal wave. No way, he muttered under his breath. I tucked my hands into my jacket pockets, tilting my head slightly. You did all this without knowing who you were dealing with? I let out a low chuckle. Man, that's embarrassing. Wiry Guy started rambling. Look, man, I swear we didn't know. If we'd known, I held up, a hand cutting him off. Yeah, that's kind of the point. He clamped his mouth shut, looking like a man who had just watched his entire life circle the drain. Tall Guy, for once, had nothing to say. I turned to Ramos. You good here? He nodded, smirking. Oh, we're good. I gave Weary Guy one last glance. Enjoy county lockup. Then, without another word, I turned and walked away. I didn't need to hear any more excuses. No begging, no bargaining. Their faces said it all. They weren't just scared of getting arrested. They were scared because they'd messed with the wrong man. As I stepped toward my car, I let out a slow breath, rolling my shoulders. Another night, another batch of idiots, trying to fake their way into power. The thing about power, though, some people fake it. Others own it, and I've never been much for faking. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, share it with friends, and subscribe for more awesome content. Don't forget to tap the bell icon to stay updated. Your support means the world.